Aloha and welcome to our first ever Middle Ground series, presented on behalf of the Center for Tomorrow's Leaders. Today we'll be tackling the topic of reopening the economy, schools, and tourism in Hawaii with a group of 6 people, made up of 2 teachers, 2 business owners, and 2 youth, all of which are based in Hawaii. They each will be providing their own perspectives on these complex issues, and it makes for a great conversation. So we're really excited for you to see it. Let's get right into it.
Aloha, I'm Kumu Kale Lima. I'm a teacher at Kamehameha Schools, Kapalama, in the high school. I teach speech and debate classes, public speaking, that kind of thing.
Aloha, I'm Kurt Ai, and I am a teacher also at Kamehameha. I teach 10th grade social studies, specifically honors world history, and I also coach both in the boys and girls water polo programs. And I'm happy to be here as well.
Hi, I'm Julia. I'm currently a sophomore at Williams College, and I'm studying econ, poli-sci or religion. And I'm a recent graduate of Konawaina High School.
Aloha mai kako. My name is Bronson Azama. I'm a recent graduate at Castle High School. I am currently at the University of Hawaii at Manoa studying political science, in particular Indigenous politics. One of the things that I do is really advocacy for agricultural, restoring our agricultural industry, as well as native rights to self-determination.
I'm Devan Fukumoto. I own Snack Addicted in Hawaii. I'm a small business, and we've been in operation for 4 years now.
Aloha, my name is Gordon Gates. I am a business owner as well. Handle taxes and accounting, mainly for small to mid-sized business owners, both here in Hawaii and in Southern California itself.
All right, without further ado, our first statement is the following. Please turn off your camera if you disagree with the following statement. Public health should be the first priority in our community.
So I would say that public health should be the first priority in our community because obviously the economy and such are really important things, but at the end of the day, it matters about how the community is in terms of health, how everyone's doing, and it's something that trickles into every other aspect of Hawaii and in general.
Public health. I don't know if any of you or anybody has ever had anybody close to them pass away. I have. That's why we're picking black. My dad passed away from cancer. My mom almost passed away from pneumonia. She was in the ICU for 3 months. So I can tell you that my company is not at all based off of money. Money means nothing. It means nothing when it comes to your loved ones being sick and you're seeing them pass away. That is the most terrible feeling you can ever feel in your life. I mean, to think that if I were to open my store and I had something to do with my daughter who's here every day with me because we pay for their preschool, well, my youngest daughter, we pay for her preschool. We pay $1,200 for her preschool to keep her place without her going. Just because, in case a pandemic happens, is over, she has a place in preschool. But I still don't send her because I told her at that point, my wife, who's a teacher, it's a Hail Mary pass. We may get it, we may not, we don't know. But parents as parents need childcare and some can't afford it. If their kid is a little bit sick, they're gonna send their kid to school. I'm sorry. And they say that children don't show as bad signs as they do, yeah? But if my daughter were to get it, I've been through them being through 104 fever. I've been through them just throwing up all night and just being so helpless. Like as a parent, I cannot handle that, knowing that that was my decision because of money. We're losing a lot of money through this whole pandemic, but I will not risk my life, my family's life, even though they say the chance of survival is really great. That's awesome. That's really good. But if I can do anything at all to stay afloat in my business and keep my family safe, I'll do it. So that's why I've chosen to only do online orders, and only now we've opened up to at the door pickups, but I do not let anybody in my store. And it's huge. It's a huge detriment to me and my family and my business. But I'm willing to take that risk as long as I don't need to see my dad die again or my mom be in the ICU for 3 more months. There's no way.
Turn off your camera if you disagree with the following statement. Schools should immediately begin the process of reopening.
I would say that I agree. I think it depends also on the specific community that it's in. I know like some places that are here. I'm in Williamstown right now, so I'm just talking about right here, where there aren't a lot of cases around, and in general, it's been harming like the parents who aren't able to go to work, and it's just put a burden that doesn't need to be there. I think that in many cases they can open at least in like half day kind of things or every other day, just to limit contact. But other than that, I still think that there should be efforts to try to open schools.
And I would agree with that as well. I believe that, based on what the data shows, that, from a kid's perspective, or, based on their age and everything like that, it's very limited on any type of issues that they can run into should they catch COVID. But the other thing that's more important is it really falls back to the parents, because parents shouldn't be sending their kids to school if they're not, and I think Davin talked about this earlier, is that if your kid's sick, just because you got to go to work and you can't afford to have some type of daycare doesn't mean you send your kid to school. So I think it really starts at home, and that if everyone knows that their child is fine, I think if we do some social distancing, which I think we're already doing in some of the classrooms and so forth, that I'm okay with it. I know from a teacher standpoint, and I say our teachers are off, but the teachers would be my concern. And what I would do is just try to make sure that we've got some type of protection for them, or rules and procedures in place to ensure that they don't get contact.
For me, it's and for a lot of these statements, I think it depends. There's a lot of gray for me, but I think, and Julia mentioned too, that it depends a lot on the community. I think it depends on the age of the students. I teach high school, and I think the high school students have been able to manage the distance learning. At least my students, I feel like that's been the case. I know, though, it's a whole different ballgame with the younger students, both in their learning and being at home as well. So, I mean, I think it's not just one size fits all here for everyone. I think it has to be, the scope has to be narrowed, I think, when we try to address this.
I think my personal sentiment kind of follows exactly what Kurt said, is that it's not a one size fits all. It's up to what's going on in the community, and you have to weigh the public safety versus the needs of parents and the needs of families. But definitely first look at what's going on in the community. We absolutely have to look at reopening schools in a way that's safe and be planful in how it's going to be executed. But, I'm not entirely convinced that things are being executed in the proper manner, because across the nation, we've seen reopening of schools, and there's been a lot of successes and a lot of failures. So if we can look at some of those failures and see where we can learn from it, and most of those failures have to do with individual responsibilities, individuals coming to school or when they should not have, right? And causing spread, or there being social gatherings when there should not have been. So it might not necessarily be on the school itself, but on the individuals who attend or work at the schools. So, you know, it's really difficult, and we have to be planful, and we have to look at the science too.
And I would agree, especially with the, as Kurt was saying, with the online, you know, that high school students probably have a better tendency to handle something like that. College students obviously should be fairly simple and straightforward for them. I guess my concern is if we look at the elementary or pre-elementary students, what impact of not being able to go to school is that having on their education and learning capabilities? And are they suffering? Are they falling behind? Are we as teachers, because we're doing it online, going to say, well, we're going to pass them along anyway because you know, of the pandemic, and we just need to move them on? I'm curious how that is being handled or talked about.
I think as a teacher, I'm doing everything I can to make sure my students aren't falling so far behind, but I do have high school students. I can say personally for my own young children, I have very young children going to school. They are falling behind. And I have hope that they're resilient. Kids are always resilient, that there'll be mechanisms when schools reopen for them to catch up. I think their teachers are doing everything they can to make sure that, you know, even online, they're getting the best education possible. And then some students are thriving in that environment. Like I think my daughter is thriving, but I don't think my son really is catching on to this online learning. He's a little bit more distracted than my daughter, who's like really excited to get online and work. So I think it has to do with the individual kids and the individual family situations. But my hope is that kids are resilient and that the schools are delivering the best education that they can in the moment. And as schools had to and teachers had to pivot to adjust to this new online learning environment, once kids return to the classroom, teachers are going to do, again, everything possible to make sure that these kids aren't going to be left behind.
And that makes sense to me. But my question would be, what happens if that's not till next school year? What's happened to this school year and the impact on that? And again, not to get off topic, but how do you deal with parents that work? Because you know, I've got family also too that are fortunate enough they stay home and they can go ahead and homeschool while the kids are working online itself and help them out. But if you've got parents that are working, how do you deal with a child that's hopefully not left alone at home? But how do you deal with something like that too? Because they're going to fall behind even more on what's happening. And are they going to get left behind a grade because of what's happened?
Yeah, kind of on the same note, my big concern too is how that affects their social development, especially at a young age. They're not being exposed to other kids and such. And it definitely affects kids disproportionately. Like I can see people that have restaurants that don't have English as their first language, like trying to teach their like 6-year-old how to use the computer. It's not fair to the kids, I would say. And I think there should definitely just be some way to kind of integrate that like in a better way so that the kids can have that sort of leveling of that.
I would say that this pandemic is not fair, right? There's not going to be an answer that we can all live with, right? I would say that she was kindergarten when this pandemic happened, and kindergarten is when kids really need those foundational literacy skills, really, really need it. And I was so busy with making sure that my students were up to date. I really had a hard time because I was working making sure that she could stay caught up with her literacy skills. And she did fall behind. But when she started the school year and she couldn't get online and we had so many Wi-Fi issues and stuff, I'm amazed. Like maybe my child is not exactly where she needs to be as far as literacy, but she can navigate now a computer where she could never have done. She problem solves and has such creative answers and ideas to some of the things that she's doing. The processes and the skills that she's learning may not be ABC right now, but it certainly is how to manage her environment with very little help from adults, because I'm not able to help her every single time. She's learning how to socially reach out and communicate to her peers online, either through her chat or their little lunch groups or however. And she would have never done that. She's never even met most of her. I think she knew like 2 kids in her whole class going into this school year. But she's not shy if she knows you, but she's very shy if she doesn't. But just her ability to articulate her assignment are so much better right now than her ability to write down her thoughts. And I'm saying she's a future debater, a future speech interpreter in the making, because I'm just amazed at what she's been able to do. Academically, there are skills she absolutely needs to work on, and she's falling behind. Is that going to be every kid? No, because every kid learns differently. Every kid is adjusting differently. Every child has different home situations, but they're learning resilience. They're learning how to communicate in different ways. They're learning technology that, they would have never tried before. And, they're just learning to adapt, I would say. And that's one of the most important skills that, many adults don't even have.
I really, really appreciate what you just shared there, Calais, because I don't think we hear enough of that. Usually what we're hearing about the impact of the pandemic in terms of education is the negatives. And I do think there are a lot of positives out there that don't get enough attention. And I think a lot of it has to do with what you just said, is that, humans adapt and we find ways, and we are resilient. And yes, it's not easy, and sometimes we fail, but I think, as a history teacher, I like to I take a more optimistic and hopeful view of this, that this is a period of time it's a struggle for the whole world, but there are lessons that we're learning along the way, and I think that there's going to be a lot of positives that come out of it as well. And even some of my students, again, I teach high school, but some of my students have shared with me some of the life skills that they have learned as a result of this. And, not so much about world history, but just, how to manage their lives. And I think that's arguably more important. So thank you for sharing that, Clay.
I mean, I have students, talking about high school, I have students who are taking on jobs where they would never have taken on jobs before, because going to Kamehameha, you're a boarder or you're a commuter, and very few of the students actually come from the Honolulu area. So they're commuting half an hour, 2 hours in the morning and in the afternoon. So they don't have time for jobs. But many of my students now have jobs. So they're learning to balance their academics with, having a job. So, that's amazing life skills. When I went to college, I was not prepared for that. Book smart, but definitely not life smart.
Turn off your camera if you disagree with the following statement. Individuals with low risk of serious illness or death should not be restricted.
Can start us off. I guess for me, like, it's just a matter of choice. Like, to what extent do we determine like what a person can and cannot do? Because in reality, the best people who sometimes understand themselves are themselves. So we can't. I feel like the government shouldn't have the ability to limit those individuals to do whatever it is they're planning on doing and really infringing upon their rights to do so. Especially if they're the ones at low risk and they're having issues, then they should know to the necessary precautions that they need to take as they go about their day.
I say do it. Like to me, if you're asymptomatic and you're okay with if you possibly have it and you're asymptomatic and you go out in public and you give it to somebody and you're okay with that, then that's totally cool with me. And like really, I'm not like bashing on anybody or anything like that, but really they say, yeah, like I mean, I'm really good friends with doctors of Waikiki, and they tell me half the people they test are asymptomatic. They don't even know they have it. I have tested like every 3 months just because I want to make sure my employees are safe. And if I have it, we're shutting this down and I'm done. My company is not going to exist. I'm sorry. I cannot afford in my heart to ever give this to anybody. But I do not like if people feel like they're okay to do whatever they want to do, then I'm for it. Like it's okay. But that's why all I do is go home and I go to work. That's it. Are we caring about each other as much as we should be? And if so, then so be it. That's the decision.
So I guess it depends upon restrictions. Again, for me, there's a lot of gray area, but so I'm thinking, let's just say masks would be probably the classic example of a restriction that you hear a lot about people having issues with. And I kind of equate it with other restrictions that we have agreed to live by in our society that are for public safety. And I'm thinking most about wearing a seatbelt, or a lot of them having to do with restrictions that try to make our roads safer, that we have all bought into and I think have paid off as a result. And so I think, to me, it's the same thing with regards to how we practice our safe, either wearing masks or social distancing or whatever, to try to fight this pandemic.
Please turn off your camera if you disagree with the following statement. The benefits of reopening Hawaii's economy outweigh the risks of COVID-19 spread.
I'm thinking of the harms. I'm thinking of Davin's parents and his daughter, my in-laws who live with us. But I also know that businesses do need to reopen, you know, not for normalcy, but I think with restrictions, we can try to do our best to restart the economy in a planful, safe way. And we hope that business owners take the precautions needed. We hope that individuals going to work take the precautions needed. We hope that patronizing businesses um, do it in a safe manner that put other people at the least risk possible. I think if we continue to have the greatest restrictions, it it can harm the local economy. It can harm individual households. So I think I'm going to stay here with my camera on because I do know that some reopening is necessary.
I've definitely seen the impact on what's happened to businesses here in Hawaii. You know, many have gone out of business. It's been tough because, you know, the restaurant owners, people that are tied into the tourism industry, they have nothing. It doesn't matter whether you got grants or anything like that. That only goes so far. You know, you got the PPP loan that was going to help pay for employees. Well, that paid the employees, but you still got no money that's coming in. So I see the devastation that it leaves, and you know, once these people are gone, they're done. It's going to be too hard for them to come back. Their credit is ruined, you know, because they had to walk away from leases and so forth. For them to try to go start up someplace else is going to be difficult. I think, like Clay is saying, it comes down to personal responsibility. You know, I'm a business owner. I have some individuals that are coming into our office. We do a lot of this on phone. We do a lot of this via Zoom as far as with meeting with people. People come in, they've got their masks on. We make sure we've got the spacing. But we ask them too, you know, and you see a lot of businesses, they're testing you when you come in. And again, there are, like Devin says, there are no guarantees, and there aren't. But, you know, I could cross the street tomorrow and get hit by the bus. There's no guarantee either there. So I think it is personal responsibility and, to a degree, trust within the community. And, you know, fortunately, you look at Hawaii and how it compares to many of the other states. We've done a pretty good job. And to me, from a business standpoint, I think we've locked down too much and too long. And it's the longer this goes, the bigger of an impact this is going to have. You know, Davin saying he's fortunate that he's able to serve people at the door, and that's great. And what's good, Davin, is you know, your wife's working. What happens if she wasn't working and your business got devastated? What do you have now? Unemployment. The $600 from the federal went away. You get $300 a week. You can't live here in Hawaii on that with two people.
Absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct.
So,
Gordon, wouldn't you rather see the loans and all those things try to help people with the rent at least stay open? Would that be a better option? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like if my wife wasn't able to work,
you're hoping for somebody else to bail you out.
No, I'm not. I mean, if my wife wasn't working, whatever, I'd be forced to do something else. I would be forced to do it because you're forced to survive. You know, that's human beings.
And so you're forced.
I would maybe have to go back to working at Apple.
Else.
Maybe I would have to work for somebody else for a little bit. But I mean, to me, I know what it's like to have a plate full. But when somebody is passing away, there's no plate. When your life is in danger, there's no plate. There's no stress. Because all you think about is, am I gonna live? Is my loved one gonna survive? Please let them survive, please. But I mean, really, I'm not looking for a bailout. I mean, I would have to do what I have to do. I mean, I trust me. I work alongside other small businesses, and I help a lot of people. We're pink and black because of cancer. I donate a lot of money to it, which doesn't even matter. But the bottom line is, if that was us, what would we do? And if that, you know, makes sense, if Gordon, what you say makes sense to me, I'll switch my mindset and I'll say, yes, you're right. We should open up. Let's do it. But that's why I left my camera on when you asked, you know, do you think we should open up? Let's do it. Let's do it. But my store will still remain closed. And I will still depend on either online or try to come up with something really creative. Like maybe I'll start another company doing shirts, or I don't know what people need, masks. I'm not sure. But even if it means me having to work somewhere else, like I'll do it, you know.
And that's a personal decision. And that's the great thing.
It is.
Is you made a personal decision. Right now, you know, many businesses don't have that option to be able to make a decision.
Nobody has that option. Well, actually, no, everybody has an option. Everybody does. If you're a business owner, you have a certain amount of money that you're thinking you're pulling in. And with that money, you can invest it into something else to start something else. Because through this pandemic, either we're going to lay down and say, poor me, or we're going to say, how am I going to think out of the side of the box to help people? How are we going to expand our business to reach more people? You know, that I don't know. But I have expanded to do online. Luckily, we've met the right people. I've planted enough seeds where people want to help me now. But other businesses aren't that fortunate. Bars, I know a lot of bar owners, and I feel so terrible for them. Like really, the grant should go to them. It should. Please help my friends stay open. I really want them to stay open. The restaurants, stay open. I don't want all these old restaurants suffering and closing down. I don't. But you know, Gordon, like I say, my mindset can always change.
So there's two things that I'm thinking about. One is the very first statement that you asked us to respond to was about public health being the number one priority, and I think everybody was in agreement there. And then the other thought I had was of what's happening on the mainland right now, and the fact that there's more and more tourists who are coming here, and it's just a matter of time before what's happening on the mainland is going to start happening here. And to me, the reality is that things are not going to go back to, well, I don't think we're ever going to go back to what things used to be, but to where we can start to reopen our economy the way we need it to be until that vaccine shows up. And, you know, between now and then, it's going to be a struggle. And that's all I have to say.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think, sorry, I'll interject here. Well, I was just going to say that I think one thing that has been a problem in both Hawaii and just in general the country is the accusing of like other people coming in and bringing the disease. The fact is the disease is in Hawaii right now. It's being spread by everybody in Hawaii, like people that just go out to cookouts, people that go to the beach. Like that's like an issue. A further lockdown, like the World Health Organization, they don't like travel restrictions like that because it's effective for maybe like the first few days of a disease spreading so that you can gain time for a plan. But at this point, once the disease is there, it's not going to help anymore to have that lockdown. And we're losing so much by having a lockdown, such as like you guys were saying about restaurants, like restaurant owners, they can't get back the meals that they lost. Like maybe like bigger organizations like car dealerships, like if you don't buy a car this year, you could buy a car next year. But restaurant owners, like you're not going to go to the movie theater and be like, oh, I didn't watch a movie last year, let me just stock up on movies now. Like that's not how it's going to work. And a lot of these businesses aren't going to recover from these kind of things. And that's why I think we should reopen. And like you said, like we're not forcing anyone to reopen. Like if you aren't comfortable, that's what's great about being in America. It's like it's a free country. You can do what you want. You can choose to not reopen.
But no, seriously, unless you're a teacher, you have no choice.
In some ways, you do have a choice, though. But like you were kind of saying how, as a business owner, you think that you should adapt from this. But then it's also like some people don't have that option. There's a lot of low-skilled labor that are just unable to work because of this. And that's also affecting it significantly, like disproportionately. There's a lot of return migration in all the countries that have to like go back because they just aren't getting jobs anymore.
I'd like to respond to Julia's comment about tourists coming here and that's not a high risk of increasing the spread here. I don't know that I necessarily buy that, and I'm thinking about the story I just heard yesterday about the Kauai couple that got tested and they went on the airplane anyway, and then they flew here, and then they were caught, and I guess they were trying just to get back to Kauai, but they were on a plane, and who knows how many people were infected. So I don't know. I think that just based on what's happening on the mainland and the fact that you're going to have more people coming here, and some of these people obviously are going to try to do it the wrong way for whatever reason, I just see the rates going up here in Hawaii because of that.
I completely agree. Like restrictions should be strict. They should be in ways to restrict it as much as possible. But I don't think that we can just blame tourism bringing it in. Like the same kind of things happen. Like you go to Costco and there's people that are infected that are gladly touching all the things that you're going to touch later. Like I think that it's just kind of hard to like say that it's all tourism when a lot of it is home, and tourism is bringing things in. I'm not denying that at all, and I think there should be stricter like restrictions to coming into the state, but I'm just saying that it's not something that we can kind of like set aside and say it's different.
We all do realize that at one point we had 0 infections in like how long? Yeah. I mean, maybe the testing or whatever it may be, but we were single digits for how long? And then people got upset that why aren't we open already? Yeah. I mean, that's the importance of support local. Yeah, Gordon, I'm sure you agree with us in that support local, right? I mean, there was a point we had weeks of 0 to single digits. And then all of a sudden, boom, we got like hundreds and 200s and 300s of cases, which that's none of my business. I don't care. Like we can reopen and I'm totally fine with that. We need that. We need that. Bars, restaurant owners, my friends that are suffering, they need that. Open up, do it. But if I can figure something else out, I'm cool with that.
I worked in restaurants before I became a teacher, and you know, I'm far past a decade in teaching already, but I was about a decade in restaurants before that. So I became a teacher because I started substituting as a third job and just fell in love with the diverse needs of my students and wanting to make sure that I'm trying to address those needs as best I know how, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
that's the kind of teachers we need. That's the kind of teachers we need, like you, Calais. Seriously.
I was in special ed, so I
was a skills trainer for 5 years.
I love my skill. I did skills training in the homes as another job.
There you go. Yeah, right.
If in my school outweigh my personal needs, I then have to weigh what's more important, but also I hope that my school or the districts are flexible in the way that they're delivering, you know, that they're giving parents options, that they're giving families options, so that teachers also have options. But when it comes down to balancing the needs of the families in my school and balancing my own needs, if there is more of a need for the communities and the families to come back to school, then there has to be bodies in the classroom to address those needs.
Yeah.
I guess for me, sorry, regarding my disagreement with the statement of benefits of reopening Hawaii's economy outweigh the risks of COVID-19. My whole reasoning was I feel like this whole time we've been discussing about reopening, it's kind of been like our anchor of preventing us from creating change here in Hawaii, because everything's directed at the eggs all in one basket, which is tourism. And right now that basket has a puka in it. Our eggs are falling out. And I think another question we have to ask, even in this time where the risk of COVID-19 spread, is right now I think our tourist industry has been really doing a decent job and the best capacity they can with the testing before visitors come here. However, when we're out of the federal funds by the end of this month, are we going to be able to maintain those programs to really take into consideration and take the precautions that we need to take to prevent COVID spread coming back to the islands? And I mean, there are, like Julia said, there are issues of it spreading within our community as well that we need to address. And those are some other topics. However, for me, I feel like in our current leadership, everything's been geared to waiting to that one industry to come back, preventing us from investing in other things that are resilient in the times right now. And for me, it's just we need to build up what's working right now, as well as investing to bring up what's not so working, so helping our tourism industry later. But what's working right now, we need to really expand upon in order to save everything else after. But I mean, there are many gray areas, like we've said repeatedly, and there's a lot we need to consider in there.
That's all we have for today. We want to give a shout out to the YouTube channel Jubilee for inspiration on the format of today's discussion. We hope you learned something, we hope you expanded your viewpoints, and most importantly, we hope you understand and believe in the importance of conversation on such critical topics. Until the next one, stay safe and aloha.